He just wanted one night where his daughter felt like royalty. But when the maitre d' humiliated them at the door, a stranger in diamonds stood up. If you've ever fought to give someone you love a taste of magic, this story is yours. Before we begin, I hope today brings you comfort, clarity, and something beautiful you weren't expecting. To anyone carrying quiet pain, this story may not fix it, but it might make you feel seen. Comment below where you're watching from and what line stayed with you. We're not just telling stories. We're telling yours. The drizzle had just tapered off, leaving the street shimmering with reflections of passing cars and flickering signs. Malcolm Reyes tightened his coat against the evening chill, exhaling as he glanced at his wristwatch. A cracked, worn piece from a pawn shop downtown. But it still worked, and tonight that was enough. Beside him, 11-year-old Camila clutched her glittery purse, a $3 thrift store find she'd fallen in love with. Her dress was pale pink with little roses stitched into the hem. It had taken Malcolm 3 nights to hand-fix the tear near the side zipper. He looked up at the glowing signage above, Rosalie, the city's most exclusive French restaurant, where reservations were whispered and menus had no prices. But Camila had pointed it out in a magazine last month, her eyes sparkling. That one, Daddy. I just want to feel like I'm in a castle one day. So he saved every tip, skipped meals, and somehow wrangled a Tuesday night table. Inside the sleek double doors, warmth poured out like perfume. Malcolm hesitated, then opened the door for her. Tonight, princess, he whispered. We dine like queens and kings. But the moment they stepped in, silence wasn't welcoming. It was surgical. A man in a velvet vest with a smile as cold as the marble floor approached. His eyes traveled down Malcolm's threadbare slacks and paused at Camila's sneakers. May I help you? He asked in a tone that already decided the answer. Malcolm straightened. Reservation for Reyes. 6:30. The maitre d's eyes didn't flicker. I'm afraid we don't have a reservation under that name. I confirmed it twice. Sir, the man interrupted, voice smooth but sharp. We do have a strict dress code. Sneakers and denim are not considered appropriate. We appreciate your understanding. Camila's smile faltered. Did we do something wrong, Daddy? Malcolm swallowed hard, forcing a grin he didn't feel. Not at all, baby girl. They're just picky. He turned to leave, heat crawling up his neck. But then, a woman's voice, calm, resonant, and impossible to ignore, broke the silence like crystal hitting stone. Excuse me. I believe they were here before my party was seated. Every head in the room turned. Malcolm froze, his hand still gently on Camila's back. From the far corner of the dining room, a woman stood. Her dress shimmered like moonlight. Pale silk wrapped around her like it was spun for her alone. Her posture was unflinching. Her voice polite, but with an edge that made people listen. The maitre d's smirk evaporated. Ms. Ellington, I watched you turn away a father and his daughter on her birthday, she said. For a policy, not a principle. Camila blinked. How did she know it's my birthday? She whispered. Malcolm didn't answer. He was still trying to understand what was happening. Ms. Ellington walked forward. Every click of her heels made the restaurant's silence louder. She stopped just a few feet away, looking at Malcolm with eyes that saw everything and judged nothing. I'm Harper, she said, extending her hand. Would you two join me for dinner? My table's far too quiet anyway. Malcolm hesitated. Pride and disbelief wrestled inside him. But Camila's eyes had lit up again. Daddy! He looked back at Harper. Her smile was gentle. Not charity, something else. Something closer to respect. We wouldn't want to impose. You wouldn't be, she said. You'd be saving me from an evening of one-sided conversation. The maitre d' still stood frozen. But Harper gave him a look that reminded him who paid the bills. He stepped aside. And just like that, Malcolm and Camila were no longer unwelcome. They were guests. Real ones. As they crossed the restaurant, Malcolm could feel eyes trailing them. Some curious, some ashamed, but none louder than his daughter's soft gasp as she saw the golden chandelier reflected in her water glass. The table Harper led them to sat beneath a cascade of hanging light bulbs, each one glowing like a star suspended midair. White linen, delicate plates, and wine glasses tall enough to make Malcolm nervous. He waited for someone to stop them again. No one did. Camilla slid into the seat Harper pulled out for her, straightening her spine like royalty. "Thank you," she whispered. Harper smiled, her voice lowering. "Every birthday girl deserves a throne." Malcolm eased into the chair across from Camilla, shoulders still tense. "I don't know what just happened." "You were being dismissed," Harper said, unfolding her napkin. "And I don't believe in watching that happen in silence." A waiter approached, the same man who had once ignored them entirely. "Would you like to see the menu?" he asked. "Sparkling water? And what's your favorite drink, Camilla?" Harper turned her full attention to the girl. I like pink lemonade," Camilla said carefully. "Then bring her the best one you have," Harper said. "Extra cherries." The waiter nodded and retreated. Malcolm looked across the table. "I appreciate this, truly. But we don't belong in a place like—" "You absolutely do," Harper said before he could finish. "And that man at the door? He's paid to believe otherwise, not to be right." There was a pause, not uncomfortable, just weighty. "Do you come here often?" Camilla asked. Harper smiled. "Not as often as they assume, but enough that they know I don't bluff." Malcolm studied her, unsure of her angle. There was no performance, no pity, just presence. And for the first time in a long time, he wondered if someone might have stood up for him, not over him. Malcolm had always been a man of few words and many guardrails. You didn't survive solo fatherhood, working double shifts as a delivery driver and part-time cleaner, by letting strangers into your life, especially rich ones who smiled like they'd never counted change at a gas station. But Harper wasn't making small talk to be polite. She asked about Camilla's hobbies and actually listened. When Camilla told her about wanting to be an architect, Harper didn't chuckle or say, "That's cute." She asked what kind of buildings Camilla wanted to design. And when the appetizers arrived, mini quiches with names Malcolm couldn't pronounce, Harper didn't fuss. She asked if Camilla wanted to try it together. "Like a food science experiment," she joked, and Camilla beamed. Malcolm sat quietly through most of it, sipping the ice water that felt too cold against the knot in his throat. This night wasn't what he planned. It was better, sure, but also unfamiliar, and unfamiliar felt dangerous. Harper finally turned to him. "You're still waiting for the rug to be pulled out, aren't you?" He blinked. "Is it that obvious?" She didn't smile. "Only because I've sat in your seat before." That caught him off guard. "You?" Harper leaned back, crossing her arms. "Single mom, 19. Worked reception at a law firm while finishing night classes. Everyone smiled at me. No one invited me to dinner." He didn't speak. The silence was no longer tight, just stunned. "People assume women like me were born in ballrooms," she said. "But I built my own staircase. And it started with someone letting me sit at a table I was told I didn't deserve." Malcolm stared down at his napkin. Camilla was still laughing, her world expanding in real time. And his own armor, so carefully welded, had just cracked at the seams. Dinner arrived in shimmering plates. Salmon so delicate it flaked with a fork, green beans braided in some sort of culinary art Malcolm had never seen. Camilla's eyes were wide, and she whispered, "This looks like treasure." Harper grinned. "Then dig in, Your Majesty." Malcolm couldn't stop watching his daughter. The way she held her utensils carefully, how she chewed slowly like it would extend the moment. She wasn't overwhelmed. She was enchanted. He looked over at Harper. "I spent weeks planning this night, saving every dime, called 3 times to confirm the reservation, even wore the only clean blazer I own, and still got turned away," she said. Yeah. Harper leaned forward, her voice quieter. That's not on you. Malcolm exhaled, like someone had just told him he could breathe. Camila laughed then, a pure, full sound, and held up her drink. Daddy, this is the best birthday ever. The words punched him in the chest. He blinked fast, covering it with a sip of water. I'm glad, he said hoarsely. Then Harper raised her glass too. To Camila. May she never be told where she doesn't belong. They all clinked glasses, even Camila with exaggerated care. And in that moment, surrounded by candlelight and strangers who somehow felt less strange, Malcolm realized, maybe birthday magic doesn't ask for permission. It just arrives quietly, like a woman in white standing up when no one else would. The candlelight caught the shimmer of Camila's earrings. Little stars Harper had slipped from her own clutch and offered with a wink. For the birthday girl, she'd said. Camila had gasped, touched her earlobes like she was holding the moon. Malcolm watched the exchange with quiet awe. It wasn't just that Harper had shown up. It was the way she stayed, present, unhurried. There was no edge of guilt or social performance in her gestures, just warmth. But even warmth could feel dangerous when you'd lived too long in the cold. As the conversation at the table danced between school projects and favorite movies, Malcolm found himself glancing around the restaurant again. He saw them, the glances, the whispers. A couple at the far table glanced his way, one muttering behind a wine glass. Another group, men in suits, barely disguised their smirks. Malcolm's jaw clenched. He'd fought hard to stay composed all night. But this slow parade of passive judgment, Harper noticed. She always noticed. You're not imagining it, she said quietly. I've gotten good at reading rooms, Malcolm muttered. So have I, she replied. Which is why I can tell you, none of them matter. He shook his head. Maybe not to you. She leaned in slightly. I didn't grow up in this world, Malcolm. I built my place in it. And now, I get to decide who sits at my table. He let that sit for a moment. Across from them, Camila was humming to herself, placing her napkin just so on her lap. She's happy, Malcolm said, more to himself than anyone else. She's seen something new tonight, Harper replied. A new truth about where she belongs. And that's something no one can take from her now. He nodded, but the knot in his chest remained. He'd spent years shielding his daughter from disappointment, from the stares, from the sting of knowing what doors were always locked. Tonight, someone had kicked one open, and he wasn't sure if he was more grateful or terrified of what that might mean. The dessert arrived in a tower of cream and dark chocolate, thin flakes of gold leaf catching the light. Camila gasped so hard the waiter chuckled. That's for me. You earned it, Harper smiled. Malcolm didn't touch his plate at first. He was still caught in the weight of everything. The meal, the gesture, the shame that lingered in his bones like old bruises. He hated that this kindness made him feel small. Harper again saw it. You haven't smiled once, she said gently. I don't want to get used to something that won't happen again, he muttered. Her eyes softened. It's not about getting used to it. It's about knowing you deserve it. Just once is enough to change how you walk through the world. He shook his head. I'm not someone who gets rescued. I'm the guy who fixes broken pipes and broken brakes. I'm the one people forget when they leave the restaurant. That's not how I'll remember you, she said. Malcolm looked at her then, really looked. Why did you do this? Harper hesitated. Not because she didn't know, but because she was choosing how much to reveal. When I was 19, I was almost evicted. One night, a woman in a bookstore slipped an envelope into my bag. Rent money. No note. No name. Just quiet kindness. Changed everything. I told myself, when I could, I'd pay that moment forward. So, we're a charity? You're a moment, she said softly. One I wanted to be part of. He looked down, His pride, so carefully shaped over years of struggle, was now a cage. And tonight, for the first time, someone had found the key. But unlocking it still felt like danger. Across the table, Camila had chocolate on her nose and a grin too wide for her face. "Daddy," she whispered, "I don't want this night to end." Neither did he. But deep down, he was still waiting for something to break. By the time they stepped back into the night air, the city had changed. The earlier drizzle was now a soft mist that blurred the streetlights into halos. Harper had called her driver, a sleek black car now waiting at the curb. "You don't have to," Malcolm started. "I want to," she interrupted. "No 11-year-old should have to walk home in shoes that squeak." Camila giggled. "They do squeak." Malcolm relented, guiding his daughter into the back seat as Harper slid in beside her. The car was silent, save for the quiet hum of classical music in the background. Camila sat between them, humming faintly, her forehead pressed to the window. "You live far?" Harper asked gently. Malcolm hesitated. "Edge of Eastwood. Old garden apartment building near the tracks." Harper nodded without judgment. They rode in silence for a while, not awkward, just full of things unspoken. "I've always hated leaving good nights," Harper said suddenly, almost to herself, "because real life is usually waiting with a baseball bat." Malcolm gave a dry chuckle. "Yeah, pretty much." She turned to him. "I know tonight doesn't fix things, but maybe it reminds you that they can change." He didn't answer, because deep down he didn't believe they ever really did. Not for people like him. But then Camila whispered something, half asleep. "Daddy, I felt like I was in a movie." And Malcolm's chest tightened in a way he didn't expect. Maybe sometimes a night didn't fix your life. Maybe it just reminded you there was more than surviving. The car pulled up to a cracked sidewalk beneath a flickering street lamp. Malcolm reached for the door handle quickly. "I'll walk from here," he said. Harper frowned. "Malcolm, I don't want her seeing the broken porch lights, the chipped railings. I don't want her thinking we don't belong in places like that restaurant." Harper didn't move. "And what if she sees where she lives, and still believes she belongs everywhere?" He froze. "That's the world I want her to see," she added. "One where she learns worth isn't based on addresses." Camila was now dozing, her head on Malcolm's shoulder. He slid out carefully, cradling her like he had when she was small. Harper stepped out, heels tapping against the sidewalk. "You sure you want to walk to our door?" he asked. "Most people wouldn't." "I'm not most people." She followed him up the steps. The hallway smelled of floor polish and old memories. A baby cried down the hall. Somewhere a TV blared. Malcolm opened the door, nudging it with his foot. "Sorry, it's not much." But Harper stepped in without flinching. Her eyes scanned the thrift store couch, the taped-up windows, the wall of crayon drawings. "It's more than most," she said, and she meant it. Camila's bedroom was small, barely large enough for a twin bed, a bookshelf with peeling paint, and a glow-in-the-dark star ceiling that still clung stubbornly to the plaster. Malcolm laid her down gently, brushing a curl from her cheek. She murmured in her sleep, "Did we fly home?" He kissed her forehead. "Almost." Harper stood in the doorway, watching quietly. The room wasn't grand, but there was something sacred about it, like every chipped corner had a story. "She's lucky," Harper said softly. Malcolm turned, his voice low. "No, I'm the lucky one." He led her back into the living room. Harper stopped in front of a wall lined with drawings. Stick figures holding hands beneath rainbow skies. One labeled, "Me and Daddy Fixing the World." "You built this," she whispered. "I just try to hold it together." Harper turned to him. "You don't just hold it. You shape it. Every day." They stood there for a moment, not speaking, not moving. The air between them dense, alive. "You didn't have to let me in tonight," Harper said. "I almost didn't," he admitted. But I think I would have regretted it. Outside, the city pulsed on. Inside, something gentler had begun to take root. The apartment dimmed once Harper left. Malcolm leaned against the door for a long moment, staring at the hallway like it might pull her silhouette back. The walls felt closer now, the ceiling lower, like real life had crept in again the second she walked away. He moved through the space like a man reacquainting himself with his own world. A mug still sat half-washed in the sink. A crayon had rolled under the table. The cushion on the couch sagged where Camila had bounced that morning, excited about her big night. Now she was asleep behind a thin door, dreaming of chandeliers and cake with gold dust. And he was left with a question he couldn't shake. What if this was the closest they ever got to something like that again? He walked to the small desk wedged between the kitchen and living room. An unpaid gas bill stared up at him. Right beside it was Camila's handwritten birthday card. Thank you for being the best dad in the world. Even if we don't have a castle, I still feel like a princess. His throat tightened. He didn't want to need Harper. Didn't want his daughter's happiness to hinge on someone who could leave as easily as she arrived. But she hadn't left him at the door. She'd stayed. The question now wasn't whether he trusted her. It was whether he could allow himself to. The next morning, Malcolm was running on fumes. Camila woke early, bursting with energy. She chattered through breakfast, still glowing from the night before. Do you think Miss Harper likes puzzles? She asked. Because I want to invite her over. We have that unicorn one I never finished. Malcolm gave a soft smile. Maybe, if she wants to come. She will. I could tell. He wasn't sure how she could tell. Maybe kids sensed hope like animals sense storms. Maybe she just saw something he didn't dare believe in yet. After the school drop-off, Malcolm walked the long way to work. His phone buzzed once. An unknown number. He froze. The text simply read, "Thank you for dinner, and for letting me in. Harper." No question. No pressure. Just presence. He didn't reply. Not yet. At the garage, he scrubbed his hands until the grease gave way to skin. But nothing could scrub the night before from his memory. He saw her clearly, Harper, standing in the glow of chandeliers, and then again in the hallway of his cracked apartment. She didn't look out of place in either. And for once, he didn't feel out of place beside her. That evening, Malcolm came home to a surprise. Camila had drawn a picture and taped it to the fridge. Stick figures again, but this time 3 of them. One was taller. One was her. The third had long hair and a sparkly dress. Above it, in bold purple crayon, she'd written, "Us at the restaurant." Malcolm stared at it for a long time. The addition of Harper wasn't just a child's wish. It was a declaration, a hope taking shape in crayon and stars. And it scared him more than any unpaid bill ever had. Later, when Camila was asleep, he sat on the couch with a cup of weak tea. He pulled out his wallet. Folded behind old receipts was the napkin Harper had scribbled her number on at the end of the night. Just in case, she'd said. His fingers hovered over it. His phone buzzed again. A second message from her. If you ever feel like talking, even if it's just about oil changes or third-grade science projects, I'm here. No pressure. No promise. But still, open. He stared at the screen, heart thudding against a cage of doubt. Then slowly, deliberately, he typed, "How do you take your tea?" A minute later, strong. Like your daughter. With lemon if you've got it. Malcolm exhaled a laugh he hadn't let out in days. Maybe he did. 2 nights later, Harper knocked on their door again. She didn't come with diamonds or a driver. Just a coat, a gentle smile, and a bag of pastries that Camila nearly tackled her for. "I brought the unicorn puzzle," Camila announced proudly. "Perfect," Harper said, kneeling beside her on the floor. "I've never met a unicorn I didn't like." Malcolm watched them from the kitchen, steeping tea. He didn't hover, but he couldn't look away either. The way Harper sat on the carpet without a second thought. The way she asked Camila questions like they were the most important thoughts in the world. By the time tea was ready, the puzzle was halfway done and Camila was fully wrapped in giggles. Malcolm handed Harper a mug, lemon slice and all. She took a sip and smiled. You remembered. You're kind of hard to forget. They sat on the floor while Camila rambled on about constellations and birthday wishes. And for the first time, the apartment didn't feel like it needed to be more than it was. It was full, not of money or space, but of presence. That night, after Camila had finally collapsed into sleep surrounded by puzzle pieces, Malcolm and Harper sat on the balcony. The city stretched below, humming with traffic and street lamps. Harper cradled her tea, silent for a while. You're still holding something back, she said quietly. Malcolm didn't pretend not to understand. Because it doesn't make sense. What doesn't? This, he gestured between them. You, here, us. She tilted her head. Why not? Because good things don't just happen for people like me. She let that hang in the air for a beat, then replied, maybe you've spent too long accepting what you think you deserve. He looked at her, wounded and wary. And what if I mess this up? Then we talk, or yell, or cry, but we don't disappear. He stared out at the skyline. You make it sound simple. It's not, she said, her voice soft. But it can be real. The word settled into his chest like a seed. Not fast, but finally ready to grow. The next morning came slow and gray, with streaks of weak sunlight peeking between buildings like a secret trying to get in. Malcolm sat on the edge of the couch, elbows on knees, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Camila was already humming to herself in her bedroom, packing for school and talking to her plush toys about unicorn puzzles. But his thoughts weren't with backpacks or lunchboxes. They were with Harper. She had stayed until nearly midnight the night before. They'd spoken about books, city traffic, even their favorite childhood snacks. But not once had she pried into his past. That silence made him want to offer the truth. So, after Camila left for school, Malcolm sat with his chipped coffee mug and typed out a message. There's something I haven't told you. Not because I'm hiding. Just learning how to be honest again. Seconds later, I'm listening. So he told her how Camila's mother left when she was 3. Said she was chasing a bigger life, and disappeared without a word. No letters, no visits. Just a hole Malcolm had spent years learning to fill, not cover. He expected pity. Instead, Harper replied, you didn't get abandoned. You got handed a crown. And you've worn it every day since, whether you believe it or not. His eyes burned, not because it hurt, but because someone had finally named his pain and called it strength. That Friday, Harper invited them to her place. Camila had drawn her a new picture, this time of all 3 of them standing on top of a hill made of puzzle pieces. This is what our family could look like, she'd said, like it was the simplest thing in the world. Harper's home was elegant, filled with warm woods and floor-to-ceiling windows. But Camila didn't flinch. She ran in like it was a castle designed for exploration. Malcolm, though, stood still at the threshold, shoulders tight. Harper turned back. You okay? I feel like a stranger in someone else's life. Then maybe it's time to build one that's ours. She didn't mean it as a line. She meant it as a blueprint. Over dinner, simple pasta by design. Malcolm began to relax. Camila told stories about school. Harper laughed loudly at Malcolm's dry wit. And for the first time, Malcolm didn't feel like an intruder. He felt seen. Maybe real didn't look like the movies. Maybe it looked like pasta, puzzle crumbs, and the weight of someone's gaze never turning away. Days turned into weeks. Puzzle pieces gave way to board games, and Harper's name became part of Camila's bedtime prayers. But one evening, after dinner, Malcolm grew quiet. They sat on the balcony again. Same view, same tea, but something had shifted. Harper noticed. What is it? He hesitated. Then, what happens when this stops feeling new? When we're no longer interesting, or mysterious, or shiny. She didn't flinch. Then we see if it was real all along. He shook his head. I've only ever known how to survive, not how to be loved. Harper turned to him, eyes fierce. Then it's about time someone teaches you the difference. Malcolm looked away, jaw tight. I don't want to fail this. You won't, she said softly, because you're not doing it alone. And in that moment, with nothing but city air between them, he realized. He wasn't scared of love. He was scared of believing he could be enough to receive it. The first time Harper came over and found Malcolm asleep on the couch, shirt still stained with grease, she didn't leave. She took Camilla's hand, made popcorn, and started a movie. When Malcolm woke, startled and embarrassed, Harper just smiled. You looked like you needed rest more than conversation. He'd never had anyone stay without needing something. Never had someone stay just to be. They weren't perfect. Malcolm still guarded his space, Harper still worked late, and Camilla still asked if Harper would always be around. A question Malcolm never knew how to answer. But one night, after tucking Camilla into bed, Harper stood in the doorway holding her shoes and whispered, I can stay, or I can go. Your call. He stepped aside. Stay, he said. Just stay. And she did. Not with promises, but with presence. Not with flowers, but with time. And for the first time in his life, Malcolm didn't feel like he was opening a door to lose someone. He was opening it to let someone in. Months later, Camilla turned 12. This time, there was no restaurant with chandeliers. No maitre d' with a measuring gaze. Just a folding table on their building's rooftop, strung with lights and covered in mismatched plates. Harper baked the cake. Malcolm grilled burgers. Camilla wore a tiara made of paper and glue. She handed out slices to neighbors like she was royalty. And no one looked like they didn't belong. As the sun dipped behind the skyline, Harper found Malcolm standing off to the side, watching his daughter with quiet awe. You did that, she said. He shook his head. We did. She reached for his hand. He didn't flinch. He held it like it belonged there, like it always had. There was no music, no diamonds, no formal toasts, just laughter, just real. Just a single dad who had walked into a restaurant to give his daughter one night to remember and walked out with the beginning of a life he didn't know he was still allowed to dream. If you've ever stood outside a world that told you you didn't belong, just to make someone you love feel seen, then this story was yours. Malcolm didn't ask for a miracle. He just wanted his daughter to believe in one good night. Instead, he found a door that didn't close, and a woman who chose to stay. Sometimes the most powerful kind of love isn't loud. It's someone quietly reaching for your hand and not letting go. What would you have done if you were Harper? And have you ever had someone open a door for you when the world tried to shut it? Drop your thoughts below. We read every comment. And if you believe in second chances, real-life heroes, and stories that stay with you, hit that subscribe button. We've got more coming.